Hello, my name is Jeff. This is Castle Tools, your 2A Self-Defense Law Network. I have been getting a little rumblings about what are the common aspects where prosecutors will look at you for a self-defense event. So I came across 7 shared prosecution events that causes an arrest or conviction. And we're going to be talking about those scenarios that will give you a anal probing on where the prosecution is going to be looking at you greatly. This is a legal disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't claim to be any information I give to you here is for information only. Consult your local attorney for your specific circumstances. The first one that they're going to be taking a heavily look at you if you shoot an unarmed attacker. And we're going to be talking about this because it is the most common reason for arrest. Okay, if you look at the picture to the right, this is Alexander Wiese. A few weeks ago, in January 15th of 2018, somewhere, I think it was around January 15th, or in the middle of the month anyway, Alexander was in a self-defense event, and now he has turned it into a second-degree murder charge. We'll be talking a little bit about this, and some of these are going to be because he violated a few of the 7 rules, the 7 types of events that will give you an probing. Now, he seems to be a good kid. He was 25 years old. He volunteers at the church. He volunteers as a Cub Scout, and he also does local refereeing for basketball. And it got into some troubles. Now we'll talk about the event a little bit. A 17-year-old kid of Mohammed Habib, I think his name was. Something like that. He went. It was a snowy day, snowy aftermath. He got into a car accident, single car accident. Alexander pulled up behind him, trying to help him out, see if he needed any assistance. And what Mohammed did is he backed up and crashed into Alex's car. Mohammed got out, Alex got out and said, what are you doing? Got into his face, huffing and puffing, and that typical scenario, young male bravado. And Alex went back to his car, got his handgun and got his phone, came back to him and said, don't do anything stupid because I have a weapon. And I'm not exactly sure if they were published reports. These are published reports, and if they hold true, it is what it is. If they change, that's because the writers got it wrong. Okay, so whatever that is. I don't know how Muhammad saw the gun. I'm not exactly sure how is it clear, because some of the reports said that Alex put it into his pocket. Other reports, the witness said the gun was out. So take it as this. Muhammad didn't believe that the gun was real. He said, go ahead and shoot him, spit on him, and grab the gun, or try to grab the gun, and that's when Alexander Wiese hit him. Shot him, rather. This is going to be the problem. He shot, an unarmed attacker. Now we're going to be talking a little bit about, is it the next one? Oh, yeah, here, let's take it by this one first. The witness or the bad guy calls 911 first. In this case, the witness called 911 first. A couple of girls in the car called 911. And when they call first, you're going to be looked at as the bad guy. Because when there is a kid on the ground bleeding, the cops are going to say, the victim. Not you're the victim of an attack. And I truly believe if the published reports are correct, it's going to be second-degree murder. And if Alexander's lawyer can prove mutual combat, maybe he can get away with manslaughter and not ruin his entire life, okay, for a stupid event. So you need to be the one calling 911. What you could have done is go back to your car, sit in it, call 911 and go from there. But that's not what Alex chose to do. He chose to Mohammed gave him ordinary force. Basically, Alexander went back to his car, removed himself from the first incident, and created the second fight, and he introduced deadly force. Okay? This went from ordinary force to deadly force. And this is something that you're going to be taking a greater look at. Again, there was, I didn't think I told this part of the story. There was 4 people in Muhammad's car. Him and his buddy got out of the car, and both of them were under, I think one report was 165 and 160 pounds. So these guys, these boys really weren't large, overbearing, domineering physical specimens. Okay, so there is going to be a disparity of force. And we talk about this, that multiple attackers is a disparity of force. But be paired, if they're not physically kicking you or whatever, a couple of them kicking you or whatever, be prepared to have an anal probing with this. Because this is going to be common of if you are attacked by multiple attackers and you can't prove it, because guess what? The multiple attackers have witnesses and you don't. So if you're the only person there and 4 people are beating you up, well, the 4 people have each other as a witness. You know? So be paired. The other thing that, I think I discussed this, is showing your weapon. I'm not going to be talking about brandishing or assault charges in this thing, but if you show your weapon or if you point it at anyone, be prepared to have an anal probing. And, I don't know if Alexander put this gun into his pocket and it showed, and, was this supposed to be, an intimidation factor? And John Farnham talks about this a lot. 29 times out of 30, put your gun into the mix, the bad guy's going to back down. Well, this Mohammed character, 17-year-old boy, was too stupid to go. He said, again, he didn't believe the gun was real, spit in his face and try to grab it. So be paired if you're showing or pointing your gun. We're going to be talking about more of this. Aggravated assault. Aggravated assault is what? Pointing your gun at somebody. Some states just taking it out, and the other person being afraid of it is going to be an aggravated assault. Brandishing is a serious misdemeanor. Some states it's a felony. You need to take a look at it. I am a member of CCW Safe, and reading an interview with Kyle Sweet and Don West, general and trial counsels for CCW Safe. They say the biggest issue that they have with their membership is brandishing. All right? That should say a lot to it. If you kill a minor or seriously injure a minor, we're still talking about Alexander Wiese. This is a kid. Mohammed Habib, I don't know the last name. He's a 17-year-old. He's well known with the Rochester Police Department. He's been in the country for 6 years from Iraq. He's a trouble guy. So if you have an interaction, deadly force interaction, or seriously injured a minor, prepared to have your a close look at. Now, even if you're on home, if you shoot a juvenile that was robbing you, be prepared to have an anal probing, especially if the juveniles are just in your home to steal. All right? Case down in either Oklahoma or Missouri. 3 teens went into a home. Owner had an AR-15, shot all 3 of them. He was well within his right, but there was a public outcry about the AR-15 and shooting young kids. All right? Just like in northern Minnesota. Guy was laying in wait, tired of getting his house robbed. 2 kids went into his house, 1 boy, 1 girl. Boy went down the stairs. Guy shot him. No immediate threat of death or grave bodily harm at that point. A young girl went in there looking for him. Shot her. She didn't die right away. He put a finishing shot. I forgot if it was in the head or in the chest, but he gave her a finishing shot. This isn't defending your property. This isn't immediate death or grave bodily harm. This is flat out murder. He made audio tapes of his outrage too. So be prepared if it's a minor. Unnecessary use of force. Unnecessary use of force. People don't really understand the difference between ordinary force and deadly force that goes back to ordinary force. It has to be the appropriate amount of force. Even if you're going from ordinary force to deadly force. You know, that annoying neighbor kid maybe took a swing at you with a plastic pool toy and you responded with a 12-gauge slug? Excessive force. You know? David Gramling, David shot his brother 16 times in the head and the neck, and that's after he reloaded. Excessive force. That bullet, that finishing shot with the girl in northern Minnesota, it was excessive force. You can only use the amount of force to stop a threat, and this is where a lot of people get, you know, they say stop a threat doesn't mean anything. You got to kill the threat. No, you can stop the deadly threat before that person is dead. Your goal isn't to kill them. Your goal is to stop deadly force against you. And once they are no longer have the ability or opportunity to harm you with death or great bodily harm, you must stop. You must stop. Failing to call 911. We called it. We talked a little bit this in the first slide with Alexander. He didn't call 911. Prosecutors argue that the defendant should have called the police than rather using deadly force because they had time. You know, that's what Alexander could have done. Is just sat in his car and waited for the police. You know, and you're going to get some characters. Well, you don't know if the 17-year-old kid had an AR-15 in his car, so he could have gone in a short car and it would have been shooting fish in a barrel. Yeah, shoulda, woulda, coulda. You don't know. You cannot speculate. You have to know with reasonableness that the person has a gun of some sort, a deadly weapon that can reach inside a car before you can act. You know, this logic always fails. So if you speculate that they could have a weapon, why don't you just shoot anyone that you have a disagreement with? Because they might possibly someday have a gun or a knife that can hurt you. You know, it's just a ridiculous type of argument. Not retreating, even if you're in a stand your ground state. Juries have a hard time when you have the opportunity to get away. Juries really struggle with it. Stand your ground isn't tactical doctrine. Stand your ground has nothing to do with the fight itself. Stand your ground is a legal fight inside a courtroom where you don't have to prove a negative. Where you couldn't run this way, you couldn't do this, you couldn't go that. You know, I couldn't go into a busy highway. Well, then it becomes, well, how busy is a highway? You know, is it 20 cars a minute? Is it 100 cars a minute? You don't have to, you know, explain a negative. That's what really stand your ground is. Even in some stand your ground states, like Utah, is called a soft stand your ground state, where the finder of fact, the jury, can use the reasonable standard to override your stand your ground. If it is so outrageous that you stood there like a stubborn mule instead of getting away because you were dissed somehow, is that reasonable? Unlike Texas, where it has the black letter law stating specifically that the finder of fact cannot use reasonableness in overriding stand your ground. But it has to be outrageous. It has to be egregious that all you did is sit there and wait for the person because you wanted to stand your ground. That's something you also need to take a closer look at. Using a weapon to defend a property. Geez, I was at a worthless seminar that turned into a sales speech for one of those self-defense insurance programs. And the guy goes, well, I hope he covers that you can use deadly force, you know, defending, you know, a kid coming out the door with TV. And I go, Minnesota doesn't allow using deadly force to defend the property. He goes, are you sure? I said, I am 100% sure. Absolutely. This is a common thing. You know, people think that you can defend your property with a gun. You know, if you're in the mindset that you're going to point a gun at somebody because they have your coffee maker, you need to see in your own psyche that you even should own a gun. I mean, you can't even threaten to use deadly force if someone has your property. All right. Yes, in Texas, there's some exceptions that has to do with the sun up or sun down. Don't get into that rabbit hole. All right. Don't use deadly force to defend a jacket. All right. It's just not worth it, because you are going to get a heavily anal probing, even if you are in the state of Texas. Okay, those are going to be the 7 most common types and scenarios of arrest and prosecution for people who think that they are defending themselves with a gun, and they can't really figure out why they're being prosecuted. So take a look at the 7. Understand the 7. All right. I'm on Facebook. If this is something that you're interested in, I have about 60-some-odd people following on Facebook. Go to 2A Self-Defense Law. Now, give me 5 stars. Put some comments in there. Help me out a little bit. It really helps overall. My name is Jeff. This is Castle Tools, your 2A Self-Defense Law Network. I hope this helped.